So, I was reading similar stories and figured I should share my story and see what other people's take on it is. Because to this day, I am still baffled by this experience. Anyway, I was living in Austin, Texas at the time, but had flown out to Los Angeles for the weekend. My friends put on a yearly music festival at a biker bar out around Joshua Tree. Just a relatively small thing, compared to Coachella and the like, that is. Where most of the attendees are also musicians and everyone knows each other. So we drink, heavily, for 3 days or so. By the end of it, you tend to need at least a week to recover. So I was flying back to Texas wildly hungover and miserable and completely drained. I had a flight from LA to Dallas, then a quick hop to Austin from there. I was seated by the window on the left side where there are only 2 seats. Seated in the aisle seat was a middle-aged woman, totally unremarkable. Just your average Texan mom. We made polite small talk for a few minutes, but I really felt like doing nothing but curling up in a ball against the wall and passing out. So shortly after we take off, I put in my headphones and start watching a movie on my iPod until I fell asleep. Throughout the movie, I thought I noticed her trying to look over my shoulder and watch the movie too, and then mumbling something like, "Oh great, just ignore me." This happened several times, but I convinced myself I was just misreading her. Eventually, I noticed her furiously scribbling writing in the margins of a beat-up, leather-bound book. I kept peeking over at it, seeing that the entire book was filled with unintelligible chicken scratch, in pretty much every bit of available space in the margins. I also noticed it was an Alcoholics Anonymous book. Whatever, I thought. Just someone with some issues. I eventually fell asleep. Wake up, landing in Dallas, people start getting off the plane. Lady makes zero effort to start packing her things up or get ready to go. She keeps sitting there scribbling in her book. As I said, I am wildly hungover and kind of cranky and have no patience for anything that's prolonging the time I have to spend on an airplane. It gets over to our row and it's her turn to move into the aisle. And again, she does not move at all. The rows behind us now start to leave. I finally say, "Hey, I've got a connection to catch, so I have to get moving here," gesturing towards the aisle and standing up. She laughs, shakes her head, looks up at me, and goes, "Oh no, you aren't going anywhere." I was so confused. My mind was not at its sharpest that day. I responded with, "I assure you, I am going somewhere. I'm getting off this plane now." She shook her head again and said, "But you promised me you'd never leave me." Now other people who were leaving the plane are looking at this exchange, also baffled, and I make eye contact with a few people giving that "can you believe this" look, before just edging/shoving my way out of the row saying, "Nope, nope, I certainly never said that, I'm leaving now." As I edged past, she sighed and said, "Well, I guess I gotta go with you then." At which point she stands up behind me, leaving her purse and book and all her belongings on the plane, and follows me out. All through the tunnel and the terminal and up the escalator, this woman follows at my heels, grinning like a madwoman the entire time. I'm walking fast, but she is right on my heels. I didn't say anything at first, and my mind kept saying, why is this happening now, of all days? I just did not want to deal with whatever the hell breakdown this woman was having, not with the way I was feeling. I eventually get to the waiting area for the monorail to the next terminal where my connecting flight is, and she sidles up right next to me, still grinning. At this point I say, "Alright, seriously, why are you following me like this?" Her response this time, "Because I love you and you promised me you would never be apart from me." I laughed nervously and looked around at the strangers also waiting for the train, making sure I loudly announced, "No, I did not promise that. I have no idea who you are." The train arrives, I get on, she obviously follows. Now she's trying to hold my hand. I'm moving around the monorail car texting the girl I was seeing at the time about what is going on, and how I'm actually kind of terrified by this woman. My phone was at 1% though, and died before I could get a response. I was actually getting severely creeped out by this woman. Her eyes were completely vacant. There was just nothing but emptiness in her stare. She didn't blink. Coupled with her unyielding grin, I was becoming sure it was only a matter of time before she snapped and proceeded to stab me or shove me down an escalator or something. She's still grabbing at my hand and following me as I shove around the tiny train car. And I announced to the other strangers, I have no idea who this woman is. Seriously, can someone get a hold of security or something? But everyone responded with silence. Nobody else wanted to deal with this either. I felt like I was the crazy one now too, making random statements to a train full of strangers. We finally get to the other terminal. I near run to my gate, with her right behind me still saying things like, "You can't get away from me this time." I get to the gate and spend a moment scanning the crowd. I see a woman in what looked like a police uniform waiting, and I say, "Excuse me, are you security or police or... see this lady?" But she just shakes her head at me. Everyone in the crowd just does their best to ignore us. You would be amazed at how hard it is to find security or police in a damned airport these days when you really need them. Finally, I go up to the desk and shamelessly interrupt the agent standing there. Doing my best to maintain composure, I put on a half smile and explain to them, "Hi there. So this woman standing right next to me here, I have no idea who she is, and she has been following me for quite some time." Both the agents laugh. The male one makes a comment like, "Oh, long vacation, huh, ha ha. Seriously, what can I help you with?" The crazy lady laughed with them, rolling her eyes at my absurd assertion that I did not know her. I chuckled, shook my head, and said again, "No, I mean it. I have no idea who this woman is." They finally saw the desperation in my eyes and the seriousness of my tone, and their smiles faded. Can we see your boarding passes?" I handed him mine. She produced hers from her pocket as I continued explaining. She was on my previous flight. She left her purse on that plane, all the way in the other terminal. The agents speak with themselves off to the side for a moment, while I completely ignore the woman just swatting away her hand as she tries to hold mine for the 100th time. The agents make a few quick, hushed calls, and then come back over and just say, "Come with me." They immediately whisk me through the door and slam it on my pursuer. I'm loaded onto the plane about 10 minutes before any other passenger, as a stream of staff filters by, each one offering a new apology. Eventually, the rest of the passengers get on, and they all shoot me glances as they pass my row. Some of sympathy, some of sheer confusion. The man who sits behind me asks me, "Hey man, what was that?" I give him the brief version, and he tells me, "She had a complete and total meltdown the second you got on the plane. Screaming, tearing her hair out, pounding her feet. They took her away in handcuffs." "You really didn't know her?" "Nope, I didn't." To this day, I still wonder all the time what the hell was going on with that woman. I barely even have told this story to many of my friends, because it's just so unbelievable. I never received any other information about the incident. Never learned who she was or why she thought I promised her anything, let alone eternal companionship and love. To this day, when I think about the look in her eyes when she said, "You promised me you'd never leave me," my skin crawls. So effing weird.